Now, 4:09. MPs have been talking about rural transport today. Well, that means buses, trains, cycling and walking as well, and how we can improve our network in East Yorkshire and Northern Lincolnshire. Well, this new £2 single bus fare, it's a cap on single fares, which is in place on routes across our area until the end of March, is part of a government scheme to get us back on the buses. Paul Street is the External Affairs Director from the Confederation of Passenger Transport. Hello, Paul. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So tell us about this meeting then. What was discussed?
So today, our Chief Exec, Graham Vidler, he attended a select committee in Parliament. It was a Transport Select Committee, and MPs asked questions around rural transport. There was rail representatives there and members of the bus industry. And basically, we talked about how we can increase or try to work to increase connectivity in rural areas.
And here's the problem, isn't it? Because I think across the country, and in some areas, 1 in 10 bus services have gone.
Yeah, it's a challenging environment right now. Since the pandemic, costs have increased by 24%. We've got a driver shortage as well. Real challenge to attract people to be drivers. So that affects service reliability. And further, people who are eligible for a bus pass, so that's concessionary travel, they're not taking up that offer anymore. Or we're down to 75% since the pre-pandemic. So it's really challenging. But in some areas, like East Riding, they have money from government via the Bus Service Improvement Plan, which allows them to properly plan services and then come up with ways to market them effectively. But it is really challenging, and some areas differ.
The £2 scheme that I mentioned, £2 single fare, do we know how that's working? I mean, we're sort of nearly a month into it now. Has that started attracting people back onto the buses, do you think?
So from the government point of view, we're very grateful they've done that. It's an eye-catching initiative. It makes buses more attractive. It's too early to say how effective it is, but in some areas across the country, it is creating some attraction, but we really need more focus on it to raise people's awareness. We only heard really in December and January, and we need some more focus on it. But as we said, it's only one package of policies that are needed. So, making bus fares cheaper is one, but also we need to see more bus service improvement measures like priority bus lanes that allow buses to overtake cars, that really reduce congestion. And if that happens, passengers want to use the service because it's more reliable and faster.
Now, I'm pleased you mentioned bus lanes because we talked about bus lanes a few days ago on the programme, and it's a bit of a hot potato, if I'm honest, in the city of Hull, where the City Council did a survey, and most people who answered the survey said they wanted the bus lanes currently running all day, Mondays to Saturdays, to be back to rush hours. So in Hull, we might be restricting our bus lanes, and anyone could drive in the bus lanes off peak. Tell us about bus lanes then. Are you in favour of them? Is that the right thing to do in Hull, or should the bus lanes be there all the time, do you think?
That's a really good question. I think from our point of view and from the bus industry's point of view, we're not about bashing motorists. They have an equal role to play on the road. But, in certain times of the day, like congestion, a bus can take 40 cars off the road. So, it's all about people making choices and not restricting them. So if the bus lanes are in place, it allows passengers to make an informed decision. So all we're asking for, residents alike, 2 or 3 trips a month will really make a massive difference to congestion in local areas. It will reduce it and also help improve air quality. So I think it's a balance to be struck. And as I said, we're not bashing motorists, but it's about, when's the best time to run a bus lane.
And away from the town and city centres, what about our rural areas? If you're on a core bus route and in the East Riding, somewhere like Patrington, say, small village, but they get a good bus service because they're on the main Hull to Withensea route, or somewhere like Wintringham, a tiny village in North Lincolnshire, they get a bus every half hour to Scunthorpe, a bus every half hour to Hull because they're on a core route as well. But if you're not on one of those main routes, sometimes you might have a bus once a week if you're lucky. How do we connect our rural communities better?
So, again, I sympathise with residents who are affected by less frequent services. It is really challenging. As we've said, urban areas tend to be more well used in terms of the bus services. And as I said, concessionary travel hasn't picked up since the pandemic. But I guess the good news about East Riding is they have got funding from government, and the local authority have been supporting those less popular routes to keep them running. While it's not ideal, they are still going. But it's basically a conversation to be had between operators, local authorities and businesses, and even hospitals in the area, or any workplaces, that we can work together to understand what the travel needs are. There could be special cases in certain villages where you could put on a taxi bus, for example. But the key thing here is whether it's sustainable, and funding is the key.
Paul, thank you very much indeed. Paul Street there from the Confederation of Passenger Transport. We'll talk a bit more about rural buses after 5 when we're here from the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England. And if you have any thoughts, if you're a bus user or you're not a bus user for a good reason that you don't have a bus that you can use, then get in touch.